the guru. Maybe you picture robes, mantras, a little incense. But what if the real gurus walk among us, not above us, but beside us, in meetings, on social media, maybe even behind a mic? This episode is about power, the kind we give away quietly, and how to call it back loudly, softly, or maybe in a whisper that only your soul can hear. If you've ever questioned your voice, your intuition, or why the so-called expert doesn't quite sit right, this one's for you. Hit subscribe if you haven't. Tune in, breathe deep, and take your power back. Enjoy. Welcome to the Dean's List, engaging conversations at the intersection of entrepreneurship, artistic expression, and holistic health. Experience wellness in full color, where fashion, beauty, and art blend with body, mind, and soul. Embark on a journey that dresses your aspirations in style, paints your life with beauty, and sculpts your well-being in every dimension. This is the Dean's List, where inspiration is always in session. Welcome to the Dean's List, where we balance the scales of health, creativity, and entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Allison Dean, and today we're tuning into a conversation about personal empowerment with Susan Drouilhet, life coach, energy healer, and consciousness expert. With over 30 years of experience in yoga, Qigong, bodywork, and energy medicine, Susan's career has been about aligning mind, body, and spirit for lasting transformation. A published author and currently working on a book to help people navigate relationships with those who wield power, Susan is passionate about empowering others to step into their full potential. We love that. Join us as we channel ancient wisdom, modern wellness, and the power of self-empowerment to help you heal, grow, and thrive. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, Allison. Great to be here.
Good. All right. You do so many things. So I'm curious how you want people to perceive the work that you do.
Real.
Okay.
Grounded.
Okay.
Getting to the heart of the matter.
Getting to the heart of the matter. Okay. So in essence, like when someone works with you, you want them to feel that they've had a real experience.
Yeah, I want them to feel safe. I want them to feel that this is an authentic conversation and an authentic place where they can find their truth, find their wisdom, really ground in who they are.
Yep. I mean, you have a very rich and diverse background of things that you've done, things that you do, life coaching, energy healing, Qigong. I want to understand, like, was there a moment, perhaps a pivotal one, something in your life that like led you down this path? And like, what was the first of the paths that you chose?
There have been many. And the first one probably, believe it or not, was the summer between high school and college.
Okay.
And I was lifeguarding at the town pool, and it was a rainy day. And so I was home for the day. And I, for some reason, I don't know why, I had a book out of the library called High Level Wellness. And it was like a primer on holistic health. It's by Donald Ardell. And I think it was first published in the late 70s.
Okay.
And I read the whole thing in a day.
Wow.
And it was like, oh yeah, it really was a primer of holistic thinking, holistic health. And I knew this was my path. And I really credit that, that moment with setting me on that trajectory. And then when I went to college, I designed some of my own classes as a freshman. I was at Brown University to begin, and they have a very creative and curriculum. And so I, with a couple others, created a course in holistic health and got a professor from the medical school to teach it. And then we also created a holistic health house, which was a cooperative living situation. Actually, Brown gave us a dorm it was pretty amazing. It was a small dorm. But we lived together. We studied all things holistic, had communal dinners, invited speakers from the community to come and, educate us. And so that's how it started.
That in and of itself is pretty magical, because how many college kids can say that they've like designed their own curriculum and stuff? I don't know. I mean, I think you're the first person that I've ever spoken to that have said that. So that's pretty cool. What was the first thing? So like once you amassed all this knowledge about the holistic realms, what then were you compelled to, to do first to help people?
I think my first career and entrepreneurial adventure was as a body worker.
Okay.
Yeah. And I practiced yoga starting early on, actually starting in college. I practiced it, but I didn't actually start teaching it till, later. So the first career piece was with the bodywork practice. And then that morphed into, picked up the yoga, picked up the Qigong during that, and then also became a coach and started working with people with life coaching, wellness coaching. And then over time, 25 years later, let the bodywork practice rest and continued with the coaching, which is what I'm doing now, in addition to the writing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So did you have a bodywork experience where you thought, I can do this, or I want to do this for people? I feel like bodywork is it requires so much energy to be a great body worker, and it really requires, there's so much of an energy exchange too, right? So it can be a very draining, career path to go down. So I applaud you that this was something that you chose as your first go, because that's a juicy one, right?
Yeah.
But like, what was that moment for you, I guess, or what was it that compelled that to be the first choice for you?
I think my own experience, I started getting body work and loved it.
You had an experience with it and you were inspired enough to say, I can do this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And then, in body work, there are so many forms of body work. And
right.
So even that, and all of my work has been a progression. So, starting with, like the Swedish full body massage, deep tissue, all of that, sports, etc. And then moving into more energetic body work. And then that progressed into the more energetic work, with Qigong, etc.
Did you ever do Reiki?
I did a tiny bit of Reiki, but I did more polarity therapy, which is another energetic form of body work.
Okay. Yeah. I've never heard of polarity therapy.
Yeah. It's similar. It's, it's working with energy in the body.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, that sounds fancy. I know that you're working on a book. I want to talk about the concept of a guru. Maybe you can share a little bit about what that term means to you, and I guess how you've used that term in the context of the work that you do.
The word guru is a Sanskrit word, and it means teacher. Very simply, it means teacher. And then in a religious sense, like in the ancient yogic sense, the teacher was the dispeller of ignorance, the dispeller of darkness. And so traditionally, that's what the word means.
Okay.
And in many spiritual traditions, there is a formal guru.
Okay.
In my paths of wellness and studying consciousness and studying different traditions, I have been in lots of situations where there is a guru of some form. Maybe they're not called that, but there's a teacher, there's the expert, there's the one who's transmitting the wisdom. And in those situations, there's the brilliant transmission, there's the beautiful teaching, but then there can also be situations where the walk and the talk don't necessarily line up, or where a teacher has certain expectations, students have other expectations, and then things get a little or a lot sticky. And so I started to look at that dynamic within those kinds of communities, consciousness communities, working with thought leaders, spiritual communities, etc.
Right.
And then as I started to work on the book and unpack this dynamic, I started to look around and I realized we have gurus. Guru has come to be a very common term in our world today. We have tech gurus, we have financial gurus, we have sport gurus, we have all kinds of gurus, right? So that word has been adopted in the common lingo.
Right.
And along with that are some of those same dynamics. So these situations where people come with desires, expectations to learn or to work. But if the power dynamics, because the guru has power, and the expert, the pundit, the one at the top, has power, and if that person or that organization is not clear about that, then the ones who are aspiring can get caught up in that. And then also if the ones aspiring are projecting certain capabilities or certain expectations onto this individual or group of individuals, then that also can cause the issues. So the use of the term in my work, it stems from looking at it in spiritual communities where the term comes from the ancient Sanskrit.
Right.
But I'm expanding it to look at the guru in the modern world and in all of our lives.
And how that dynamic allows people, or I guess people often give their power away.
So the book is really written for people who, they're in a situation with a guru type figure. It doesn't have to be a formal guru in robes. It can be the CEO of your company, what have you. And they feel like they're not heard or seen. They feel like they either don't have power or have given it away. They've lost their agency. Maybe they've lost their voice. And so the book is for, primarily for that audience to help them regain, identify the situations, but then regain their confidence, their agency, their voice, their empowerment.
Yes. I can see how many people could use that.
Well, I mean, the challenge about using the word guru, some people will go, oh, it's about cults. I actually had someone say, oh yeah, say it, tell it what it is. It's about cults. Just they're bad. And I'm like, actually, this is not about cults, unless it's the cult of the human race.
Right.
I mean, every conversation we have, there's a potential. Any conversation, right? A parent to a child, a teacher to a student,
that's right,
a policeman to a pedestrian, the person at the hotel desk to someone who checks in at 3 a.m. I mean, there's always this potential for a mismatch in power, and how can we learn to be in our bodies? This is the bodywork piece, right? This is the embodiment part of all the things that I've done over the years, right? How can we learn to stay connected and stay connected to our energetic center and also honor that in the other? And actually, Allison, I don't know if this was one of your questions or would be, but I just want to interject this here.
Yeah.
I'm using the terms and we're using the terms, give your power away and lose your agency and da, da, da. One thing I think that's so important to make clear is that there doesn't have to be anyone else in the room to give our power away. We're not like giving it to someone. We're giving it to the universe. We're losing it. We're losing our connection to that vitality, to that life force, to that, that central channel. It's not us, them.
Okay.
It's not blame. It's not right, wrong. It's, if I'm empowered, then you are. Do you see what I'm saying? Like my power doesn't diminish yours. In fact, my connection to that sense of agency, to that voice, fosters that in you. That's how I'm envisioning it.
Right. So it goes back to kind of the strengthening of thyself.
Absolutely. The book is for people who have struggled with this, and they're frustrated because they can't get the guru or the system to change.
Right.
That change is initiated within.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm excited to read it because I think topically it's something that many people may struggle with.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and it's topical right now. I mean, I started this book a number of years ago, and then I tabled it.
Okay.
And then about a year and a half ago, I said, no, you have to finish this. So I picked it back up. And so there was a part of me thinking, oh, I'm behind. This should have already been written, da, 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 da. And then I look at where we are in the world and I'm going, actually, no, this is a really good time. Yeah.
When the idea first came to you, what were you doing?
I was teaching Qigong. I had my coaching practice.
Mm-hmm.
I was training other people in Qigong.
Okay. Because I think many people don't know what Qigong is. I mean, we've heard of it. I mean, I know that when Sterling said it to me, I was like, oh, Kung Fu Panda. I don't know. That was like the most relevant exchange that I had recently, right? Anyway, I think if you can kind of just lay the groundwork, what is Qigong? And then I think it'd be interesting just for people to connect to how you came to Qigong based on the bodywork practice that you were doing and your holistic journey. I think that would be helpful context.
Great. Yeah, that's another one of those major moments.
Yeah, right.
Oh, we're going this way.
Yeah.
Okay, so Qigong, well, the word Qigong means Qi is life force energy, and Gong means practice or cultivation. So it's the practice or cultivation of energy, of life force energy.
Sounds good.
Lots of people at this point in the West certainly have heard of Tai Chi.
Yes.
And Qigong is like the ancestor of Tai Chi. It's the energetic framework underpinning martial arts, traditional Chinese medicine, and Tai Chi, which is also a martial art. Mm-hmm. And there are energetic and practices for healing and awakening. And they can involve movement. So there are some movements that look Tai Chi-like, and there are others that don't necessarily look Tai Chi-like. Mm-hmm. There are sounds. So there's a whole sound practice that again, sound is vibration.
Yes.
And is energy. So you can awaken parts of your system through sound.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
And then also a lot of meditative practices, so consciousness practices. Okay. So that's a very brief nutshell of what it is.
Okay.
It's much less known, obviously, at this point in our culture than yoga or Tai Chi. Okay. In 10 years, it'll probably be much more of a household name.
Yeah. And then, so how did you come to start doing it?
In my ongoing journey of wellness, I would often find myself in bookstores sort of attracted to the Qigong book. So I'd get one and then I'd glance at it and park it on my shelf. Okay. And I kept collecting them, not really taking a very deep dive. And then in 2010, I had a big diagnosis. I was diagnosed with cancer, and I crafted quite a comprehensive healing path for myself, which included everything from whole foods, naturopathy, homeopathy, bodywork, surgery, chemotherapy, the whole package. The summer that I was going through chemo, that summer, I got an email from the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which at the time was in Petaluma, California. Okay. And that's an organization that studies the interface of consciousness and matter. And I'd been a remote volunteer for them and have just been on their mailing list for a long time. Okay. It was one of those marketing emails that you never open. Okay. So the subject line said something like 2-week healing Qigong retreat in California. Oh. And I looked at that headline and I opened the email and I read it and I said, I need to be there. That's literally what happened. I didn't really do a whole lot of research. I just knew. And maybe similar to the bodywork, like I just knew that's what I wanted to do. When the time opened and the school that I was available to me opened, I just went. So I think that's why I kind of stumbled on when you said, well, and I was like, I don't know. I just knew.
Right.
So yes, one of my suggestions is to trust your intuition. But anyway, so it was that. And so I couldn't go until the next spring. Okay. And so I went to my first retreat, and a friend of mine who was also a coach in California drove me up to the retreat. Mm-hmm. And she said, she just knew. She also just had this hit. This is going to change your life. And It did. I walked in. It was like, oh my gosh. I started volunteering for the organization. And then I ended up, over time, I lived in the middle of the country. I lived in Arkansas. Right. They didn't have an online program. I'm like, I can't come to California every weekend. We need an online program. So I helped develop that, then ultimately led that, became a teacher, the whole thing. So it just one thing led to another. Yeah. And then I'm retired now from that organization, but I continue to study and practice. And it's a big part of my life.
What does that look like? So in terms of when you say I continue to study and I continue to practice, for someone that's like, where would I start with Qigong? What does that mean?
So for someone starting out, there are, a host of wonderful teachers that you can find both locally and online. I'm currently working with a teacher who's in China. I've never met him in person. Actually, I will be meeting him soon. Cool. But, he has an international following, and all of his teaching, or a lot of his teaching for his ongoing students, is online. So that's how I do it. But again, I would recommend people just do the research. There's a lot out there. For me, what it looks like in my regular day, is that what you were asking?
Sure. Yeah.
At this point, a lot of my practice is the meditation practices and movement. So I'm also listening to teachings and working to incorporate those teachings into my energetic framework, into my cellular structure. It may sound woo-woo. It's not, at least in my world. Again, it's looking at levels of energy, levels of vibration, going from form to formless, and learn and back and forth, and learning how to do that, and how to do that in a way that promotes healing and harmony and wellness.
So when you say some of this, it makes me think of like a rife machine, or like tools that also like can affect energy and frequency and stuff like that. Are there connections? Like, have you worked with any of that other stuff, like the more mechanical sides of wellness as it relates to like those things integrating with Qigong?
I'm not sure what a rife machine is, so I can't speak to that.
I have to send you info, Susan. Okay.
Have you done a podcast on it?
I get not yet, but that's a really good idea. And also, just disclaimer, Susan, you never have to worry about saying anything that's too woo-woo with me. So you can like go as woo as you want to. You don't have to. Yeah, the Dean's List, we do not.
Well, woo is my reality. So.
Yeah. I welcome it with open arms, all the wooiness. So yeah, totally fine. Okay, it'd be good for us to, though, maybe, I feel like the guru concept, though, within Qigong is probably a very powerful one. So obviously, when you had the idea for the book those years ago when you were practicing Qigong, it was rooted a bit in I don't know enough about Qigong. So like, I'm definitely It
wasn't necessarily rooted in Qigong. It was rooted in just decades of working with different teachers and being in different organizations and seeing these dynamics play out. I mean, people are human beings.
Yes.
One of the things that may be important to also speak to is it's not, again, I think I said earlier, it's not us, them. It's not like blaming the guru. I mean, we also live in a culture of cancel culture. When someone falls from grace, it's a hard, fast fall.
Right.
And this isn't to absolve or ignore unethical behavior or abuse or, criminal activity or even unkindness. It's not to say that stuff is okay, because it's not. It's also that the gurus are people too. They sometimes forget that themselves when they get wrapped up in the power trip. When they become the rock star, it's easy to forget that. And then if you've got a whole lot of fans fawning, it feeds something, right? And so it's a collective issue. It's not us, them. So back to your question about machines and technology. When I was a body worker and they would have these gadgets, like the one I think was called the thumper, whatever. They were kind of fun. They were amusing. I always had the bias, yes, but there's no substitute for the human hand.
Right.
It's not just the human hand. It's all of the intention, all of the energy, all of the focus and that's coming through.
Yeah.
Right. And what you can pick up. I mean, a thumper isn't going to pick up your emotional state.
That's right.
It's just going to pummel you.
or also just like your intuitive, like the feeling you have when you're handling someone, you can feel if something like twitches in their body or if something feels like it's releasing in a certain place. If you use, different devices, you're not getting that kind of feedback.
I can see a place for technology. Yeah. I think an awesome use of technology. I mean, I'm actually really excited about this. My partner, as you know, is in VR and we have a project going to, work with energy and technology.
Yes.
I think an amazing use of technology would be to help us become more human, meaning that we expand our capacities for healing. We expand our capacities for consciousness, for awareness, for altruism. It doesn't shut those down. It actually shows us this is what happens when you line up in this way. It's like a biofeedback, positive feedback system. And then it becomes that much faster, that much easier to do that. And you can reach that many more people because of the technological button and everybody's online across the planet.
Yeah.
I think that's an amazing, or could be an amazing use of technology.
Yes.
That's how I think it would be great to use it.
You're going to very much enjoy one of my upcoming episodes where I talk with a futurist about wellness and technology. I'm going to send you that because you're going to want to meet him. And I feel like you both would have a very interesting exchange. So I already can feel it that this is going to happen.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, Allison. Thank you.
I think it's also maybe important for us to talk about, because you've worked with a lot of people, and obviously this notion of a power imbalance, a lot of it, or maybe all of it, is rooted in ourselves on some level, right? How we ourselves are navigating these dimensions of giving our power away, or how we're handling these different personalities, these different gurus, these different teachers. So I feel like it'd be interesting to hear in your POV why you think that addressing these power imbalances is essential to, I guess, maintain wellness.
To use the power analogy, like from electricity, that kind of power, if we think of it that way.
Okay.
If we're not using our full voltage.
Yes.
I know I'm mixing metaphors here, but we're not firing on all cylinders.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So if we're not firing on all cylinders, there's a part of us that's shut down.
Yes.
And wellness for me is a very holistic enterprise. It's not just, my cholesterol levels and my blood pressure and how much protein I get in a day. It's the whole package of emotion, thought, awareness, and of course, physicality. If we're giving our power away, okay, or if we're just not lining up, if we're afraid of our own power, I mean, that too can be part of it, right? We don't like power is a dirty word. I mean, it's so interesting in our culture. People want it, but they don't want it. It's like how do we celebrate empowerment? How do we cultivate that in everyone so that it isn't power over, but it's just living fully. Yeah, power with, right? So I don't know if you can think of a moment where you didn't say what you had to say.
Oh boy. Let's count.
Okay. So right there, what does it feel like?
Oh yeah, we don't like those times. No, it's
See,
terrible.
but that's what I mean. Like that moment, those moments affect every cell in our body.
Oh yeah, amen to that. Yes, absolutely. Right. Yes.
So that's why it's so integral both to our individual health and wellness, but to our collective wellness.
Yes.
Otherwise, what are we? We're
like
just in survival mode.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. You refer to like the high road approach. Talk a little bit about the high road approach so people understand.
Okay. I think I've touched on it some already, but the high road means the first response isn't blame. It's not necessarily cancel culture. It's not us, them. It's not you're evil. It's that everybody is a human being, and you or I or someone may have made some egregious mistakes, and maybe that person does need to be stopped, contained, jailed, what have you. But we can do that without hate. We can do that holding compassion for the larger human drama unfolding. The high road is not an easy road. And it's not necessarily always a popular road. People want to take sides. I mean, I do the same thing. I get frustrated and angry and spout off. And then, but at the end of the day, if I'm blaming someone, actually in that moment, I've given power away.
Oh, yes.
So it feels like I'm one up. But in a larger picture, I don't think so. So that's what I'm exploring. This is not easy stuff to unpack.
No, layers, lots of layers. Yeah.
It's not always fun.
Right.
I mean, this is not a book I think AI could write.
No. Well, unless you did a lot of like voice transcription and it was like you talking through every chapter and then saying, okay, now just, make this sound cohesive kind of a thing, but use everything
maybe.
I have. Yeah.
The thing that's been challenging in this work is that, you asked me at the beginning, how do I want people to hear, feel, experience my work?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I said authentic, but that's also one of the big words. I said real. This is an authentic inquiry. I'm asking these questions and then taking a deep dive into them. I'm looking at it. I'm attempting to look at it from different sides, and not only and including how I give power away, and how I misuse power.
Because you've worked with so many people, right? You've affected so many people. Are there any interesting case studies or just, notable examples of where you saw someone that has worked with you kind of shift how they were engaging in power dynamics?
I've facilitated people changing careers, like exiting from situations where they really weren't being heard. They were doing the thing they should do or that they had spent years training to do, but it really wasn't fulfilling them. And they were also running into dynamics that didn't support who they were.
Okay.
So helping them regain their voice, clarify who they are, what they wanted, regain their power, and then make a big, scary shift, but one that was actually more authentic and true to who they were. That's an example. It's so inspiring to see people make these changes. And it's not necessarily, one day you get your power back and the next day your life is groovy. right? It's these little changes and these little choices day in and day out that then make that shift.
Right.
Yeah, helping people find their voice in the family conversation.
Yeah.
Right? In their own conversation with their own art. Like, again, creating programs or finding jobs that really support who they are.
Right. Yes.
And when it happens, it's so beautiful. Like, again, I'm not talking about like the big grand transformation that you can put on a piece of paper. I'm talking about that moment.
Yeah.
When people come back in and they go, oh, and it's this moment of, truth, of acceptance, and it's just this natural humility that arises, coupled with gratitude, coupled with a sense of strength and power. Like, you don't have to go looking for it. You don't necessarily have to go train for it. You just have to get out of the way and land, and it's there. And so being part of that equation, it's mind-blowing. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's pretty
I feel
cool.
so lucky to do that.
Yeah. What is the connection between power and personal agency?
They go together, right? If you have agency, a sense of confidence, a sense of competence to be able to initiate and manifest your goals and dreams, inherent in that is a sense of empowerment. At least in the way I'm seeing it now, they go together.
Okay.
Right? I'm trying to think right now, like, could you have power and not agency?
I don't know. Maybe that's another inquiry in the book.
You'd be really jumping around.
We're adding a chapter in the book right now, Susan.
Oh, please no. No.
Like, no more chapters, thanks. How would you, like, what is the Susan definition of personal agency?
The confidence and competence to initiate and manifest goals, your desires, your goals, your dreams.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a big one. So what is the recipe for success for people to cultivate their own agency? They have to read your book.
There are 3 steps.
Yeah, right. Just do these 3 things.
I wish there were 3 steps.
Right.
I really do. It's certainly for me, and I know for my colleagues and friends, this is a lifelong journey. And the important piece is to just get on it. Like, get on the path, get on the journey. Start to become aware of who you are inside. And I know there are people, because I've worked with some of them, and I know there are a lot more, who will say, I don't know what I want. Or I've never had agency or power, so I wouldn't even know where to begin. And that's real. Sometimes people have been exposed to or raised in situations where they really weren't, it wasn't encouraged, it wasn't cultivated. And maybe the opposite, it may have been very discouraged or very stripped from them. That process of coming back to, and sometimes it's just a glimmer, like knowing, like trusting there's something in there, that knowing that you can connect to. And then taking those steps and building that gradually over time.
Is that what you're hoping to facilitate for the people that are like reading your book or working with you one-on-one, is facilitating the belief that it's possible?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And so what I'm hoping that the book will help with, and again, yes, of course, my work one-on-one and with groups of people, that they begin to recognize that this is a thing, right? Like, they're able to identify, oh yeah, this is where this happens. Oh, I can see this happening in this organization, or I can see where I've done that.
Right.
And so they begin to just identify it as a thing. And then just the awareness begins that journey. And so then hopefully then they'll, work with the pieces about cultivating the positive qualities, dealing with the negative qualities, taking all these inside skills and learning how to apply them in the outside world in the really tough conversations.
Yeah.
And then they become a force for change for themselves and for the world. That's my big hope.
I love that. For like people that are listening to this, are there like certain questions that they should ask themselves to understand if like they buy your book, it will help them? If they ask themselves this and the answer is this, my book will probably help them. Or if they ask themselves this and the answer is anything like that, where it'll help those people kind of put the puzzle pieces together.
I'm thinking of a question that I will often ask in my coaching sessions, because even clients that I've worked with for, quite a while, there'll be times they come in, they go, I don't know what I want to talk about.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Because part of the coaching process is it's client centered. It's not me telling you what you need to work on. It's you saying, this is what I am. It's, you come with some agency.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And there are times where people say, I don't know. And I can't manufacture that for them. I can, I do a lot of reading between the lines, but what I will often ask them, and this I think is, possibly a good question for the listeners that you're referring to, what don't you want? People will often have a pretty good idea of what they don't want.
Yeah.
Or I will ask in the coaching session, what don't you want to talk about? And now, those are some of the best sessions that we'll have, right?
Okay.
But it's like, we know what we don't want. We might be afraid to say it. That's a different issue. Okay. Oftentimes people will know what they want, or they knew what they wanted, but it's been so buried, and now they think they don't know, but they're afraid to say it, afraid to go for it. So a helpful place to start is, what don't you want? And that can lead you to
what you want.
What do you want?
Amen. Okay. I love that. What don't you want, people? Okay. Well, hopefully they want a lot more of the Dean's List. But anyway,
I'm sure they will. Okay. I do.
Yay. Okay. So we're going to do a quick fire, which is just me asking you a bunch of rando questions and you answering the first thing that comes to mind, just so people understand a different dimension of Susan. And then we'll go back to a few more questions.
Okay.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
I would have guessed
by
that.
hours.
Yeah. Coffee or tea?
Both.
Okay. Yeah. Same. Favorite color?
Blue and green, both.
Love it. What was the first paying job you ever had? Was that the lifeguard job, or did you have one before that?
No, babysitting and dog sitting.
Okay.
In the neighborhood.
Yes. What's your favorite music genre?
Oof. Maybe classical, but I like so many. I'm not a fan of metal. Okay. But I love a cappella music. A cappella music.
Yeah.
There's a lot that I love, but yeah.
Okay, what's one phone app that you can't live without?
Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on it every day. Yeah.
That's the app.
So.
What's the one word that you would use to describe your business journey?
Well, there are two: authentic and wellness. I mean, the wellness has just been the thread through the whole thing.
Yeah. If you could have any entrepreneur as a mentor for a day, who would it be?
My writing teacher, AJ Harper.
Okay.
She's awesome. And if I could have her for a day, whoa.
Okay. Oh, wow. Transformational. Okay. I love it. Speaking of books, what's a book that has significantly influenced your mindset? Maybe that first one from the library, but is there another one?
Yes, it's called Savitri. It's the longest epic poem written in English by Sri Aurobindo.
Oh, wow.
And it's a whole treatise on consciousness and the debate between love and death. So it's a big work. So, again, it's a life study, but if I had to go to a desert island, that's the book I'd want to take with me.
Wow, that's the Desert Island book. Okay, I like it. You'll have to link it to me, Susan, or send me a text.
Okay.
If you could instantly acquire one new skill instantly, what would it be?
Again, two, I'd learn Icelandic. If I could learn Icelandic instantly, that would save me a lot of time. And I'd like to learn how to row a single scull, a real skinny one, without falling in.
Wow. Okay. Why Icelandic?
I don't know.
Oh, it's just
I
like
love Iceland, and I've been there a couple times. I'm going again.
Huh?
I don't know. It's a big challenge. Maybe I want to stimulate my brain.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. No, I accept it. I just was like, of all the of all
I know,
the
it's ridiculous. Yeah.
No, it's not ridiculous. No, it's not ridiculous. I just you're the first person that has said that. So I'm kind of like, oh, I need some context here. Okay.
Every word is about 5 syllables. It's insane.
It's kind of like German. German is like that, where it's like super long, right? Like every word is
super long. Yeah. And but
right.
Anyway, why not?
Why not? Why not? I like it. If you could time travel to any period in history, which era would you visit?
The future.
The future. Cool.
Yeah, could we get to a place where there's no war? Could we get to a place where the earth is abundant? That's where I want to be.
Yes. Yes. Pandora. If you weren't doing what you're doing, what else might you be doing?
I would be gardening and landscaping more full time.
Oh, I like that. Oh, you can come over, Susan, and help me with that because boy, do I need it. All right. Well, that was a quick fire. Thank you for participating in that short and sweet little round of questions. All right. So let's talk about wellness some more, because the wellness marketplace is certainly, I think any human is so overwhelmed now. What would you recommend a consumer human look for when navigating the wellness landscape,
In answer to sort of the plethora of offerings.
Yes, okay.
Which, it's
lots. Yeah.
Even for a veteran, it's like, I would say follow your heart and know that if you start working on one thing,
yes,
and focusing and making transformation there,
yes,
it can't not affect everything else. Everything is connected. So that's one thing, to follow your heart. That will help you, weed through.
Okay.
Another piece of advice I would give is to trust your gut, meaning that if you, hear about some great whatever, product, program, teacher, what have you, check it out, but also check it out within. If there's something that doesn't feel like it lines up, either because it's not for you at this time or because there's something glitchy, like some of the stuff we've been talking about, pay attention to that. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to, say no completely, but it means go in with your eyes open and keep your expectations in check. Meaning, maybe there's a part that can be super helpful. It may not be the thing that serves your whole existence.
That's good advice. Have you heard of the Heart Math Institute?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. I was like, when you were just talking, I was like, oh, I got to send you the Laura Ivan episode. You'll love it.
Yeah. I think I actually heard it, but I'm not, I think I did. And Heart Math is fabulous. I love what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, I think there is a lot to be said for connecting because we don't often do that for ourselves, right? Even when I was talking to Laura about this in her episode, just connecting to your heart, like even in breath work, we don't often think of our own hearts when we're breathing. And there's so much to be said just for that connection, It's interesting.
Yeah. And that's another thing, like coming back to this, right? your heart, your body, your ground, you'll get a lot of answers just by doing that.
So beautiful. Yeah.
It's really, really foundational.
Listen to your heart. It's a song, right?
Many of them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sing it right now.
Come on.
I know. Darn. How do you think wellness professionals can preserve the integrity of the work that they're doing while navigating, I think, this pressure of commercialization, monetization, all these different things that obviously, people gravitate towards.
Yeah.
How should the people within the wellness sphere navigate it?
That's a big one. Do their work. Give their work to the world, but do their internal work. Deal with their issues around power, ambition, their own neediness, their own need to be loved or liked, or their issues around money. All of those things are super, super important, and also to take care of themselves. Because again, as entrepreneurs, it's very easy to just, everything becomes that, there's no 5 o'clock, right?
No, right.
And keeping your own balance in view. So self-care, practice, walking the talk, it's super important, and it's super easy to fall out.
Speaking of self-care, what does wellness mean to you?
Joy. Yeah. Because if you're in joy, you can tolerate a whole bunch of garbage and still connect with wellness. I've been through many stages of what I would say the wellness journey, and long stretches where the practices that I might engage on a daily basis, I couldn't for whatever reason. Right. And that doesn't mean I have to give up my wellness.
Right.
That just means I'm giving up a diet, or maybe I can't work out because I'm injured, or I'm in a place where I can't do those things. Right.
Yes.
Wellness is bigger than that. So joy, if you're in joy, that can hold a lot
of space. What are your daily wellness non-negotiables? So I know you mentioned the Qigong work that you still do, but
I would say the non-negotiable right now, again, it always shifts, but is gratitude. Again, to put myself in that frame of wellness, no matter what's going on. It's tricky because there's the importance of the discipline of having a practice. Okay. Whether that's working out at the gym, or eating whole foods, or drinking enough water, or breath work, or yoga, or Qigong, or meditation. There are a million things, right? But we can also get rigid with those. They can become traps. They can become a tightening rather than a loosening. And so gratitude helps me be grateful for what is. And I also have the advantage of having wellness be my personal path for a long time. So it's just the way I live. It's just, I don't necessarily think about it. It's just how I operate. I'll tell you this, Allison, it's kind of funny. From years ago, probably 30 years ago, when I was in Arkansas, I was living out in the Ozarks, and I was going on a cleansing diet. And I mentioned it to one of my neighbors, and he looked at me, he's like, "You're going on a cleansing diet? Like, what's up with that? Like, what's left?"
Okay.
So, it's just such a part of my life that I don't necessarily think about it. In fact, I often feel like I'm a lapsed everything. There's a lot more in my life now that 30 years ago I would have not permitted. So there's this relaxation around the wellness protocols and more of a sense of overall wellness, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You're leaning into the joy. Can we talk a little bit about your cancer remission journey? Only because I would love to help anyone out there that may know someone, may be experiencing it themselves. Anything that you feel comfortable sharing about the healing modalities that really worked for you to maybe help inspire them to research and maybe find a different path than what they might be currently doing. It sounded like you did all the things, like all the things you kind of did.
I did all the things.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I don't know if I could recommend a certain
protocol or something. Yeah, right.
I mean, it's not even in my wheelhouse to do that. But what was important, again, was agency. I asked a lot of questions. I didn't just say, go to the doctor and say, okay, tell me what to do.
Right.
I said, wait, I'm going to do this on my own time. Not necessarily to the ease or joy of my medical professionals. Right. But, when you start using your voice, you're not always, it's not always, people sometimes buck that. So, ask questions, listen within. I don't think about it. I hesitate to mention it often because people glom onto it. Right.
Yeah. Right.
I don't think about remission. Like remission isn't a thing for me.
It's just not there. Right.
One time, and I probably had a bald head. I was in the locker room at the gym. This woman came up to me and she said, I don't know, something about survivor. And she said, I've been a survivor for 7 years. And I thought, well, who were you before that? Like to identify as your life is identified now by this particular diagnosis. I think it's common, but that wasn't a path for me.
Yeah.
I didn't identify with the diagnosis. I very rarely have said I had cancer. I would say I had a diagnosis of cancer.
Yeah.
Maybe that's, some people would say, well, that's denial. Well, maybe, or maybe it's saying I'm bigger than this thing.
Right. Not giving your agency to the thing.
Yeah. Part of that too, then, is not holding oneself as a victim.
Absolutely. Right.
There could be a million reasons why this thing happened. Again, my friend who said, you're going on a cleansing diet. My brother said when I was diagnosed, he's like, oh my God, if Susan is dealing with this, the rest of us are just effed. Because I had, quote, done everything right. 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 So the picture is large, and find your joy.
Yes.
Do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't an opportunity. I mean, sure, there were moments where I felt completely like victimized or completely like, oh my God, what just happened? And, or a few days out of surgery number 2, and I'm in bed and everything that means anything to you has been taken away.
Right.
It's like, what's left, And at that moment, the only thing was relationship, was connection. That was the only thing that mattered. And it was like such a wake-up call. Like, this is the only thing that matters.
Wow.
So in that way, a tremendous gift. But again, one that, I got to unpack it just like everybody else. Like,
yeah.
One day I walked in, I think it was chemo session number 3 or 4. And you always have to see the doctor before you do it, right? And this wonderful doctor, but young, maybe in his late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
He looked at me, he said, what's up? You're kind of glum. You're usually in such a good space. I looked at him, I said, yeah, I'm pretty tired of contemplating my mortality.
Yeah.
And he said to me, yeah, I haven't had to do that yet. And I'm like, dude, you're dealing these death dealing chemicals. That's not what you should be saying. I could teach you a thing or two.
Right. Yeah. Right. You're like, here's my business card. We should talk. Yeah.
We should talk.
We should
Anyway,
talk.
so everybody deals with it differently.
Yeah, for
Respect
sure.
your journey, respect others' journeys. If you're up for it, it's an opportunity.
Yes. Yes. Right. Absolutely. Everything can be framed in that way if we want it to be.
I did a bunch of writing during that time, and I wrote these, what I would call my epistles.
Uh-huh.
And it was the first blog I had. I sent them out and people were like, oh my gosh, you should publish this. And I never have. And I keep thinking I should just take all those and put them in a little booklet and just put them on my website and say, here. And I think maybe I'll have that as a goal for the end of the, before the end of the year. Because a lot of people over the years, have accessed those and really appreciated them. And it's just my particular perspective on this journey.
I think that sounds very lovely. And I think you just spoke it into the universe, Susan. So it sounds like...
yeah, right. Put it out here in the public sphere. And guess what?
Yep. Time to put it out there. Is there something that's maybe like a simple practice or something that is like easy opt-in for someone to do that maybe is not a wellness aficionado, someone that's new to all these different things that we're talking about, outside of like leaning into just maybe feeling more joy? Is there some other thing that you might recommend?
Yeah. So learning to connect with the body. So, and there are different ways you can do that. You mentioned your friend and breath work. Mm-hmm. One thing that you can do is ask yourself, what's happening in my body right now? Begin to pay attention to sensations, to movements. Are you breathing? What is your heart beating fast or slow? Are you clenching any part? When we ask the question, by turning our awareness to that, we begin to, the process of opening and relaxation and awareness just begins just by asking the question, what's happening in my body right now? It's really simple. Everybody has a body who's alive, right?
Right.
And so you don't need any special equipment. It's such a simple thing that you can do that brings you back. And from there, it's so foundational.
I think that's a beautiful thing. Perhaps this is more of my own personal inquiry. It's interesting for anyone who's living today. If you're interested in working with a coach or a teacher or a healer, because so many people now have called themselves one of these various things, what should someone be mindful of in making that selection?
Again, kind of the same when you asked about how do you assess programs and products. And so feel into the connection with that person.
Trust your gut.
Do you feel heard? Do you feel seen?
Yeah.
Do you feel respected?
Okay.
Do you feel listened to?
Yeah.
Is it an open invitation or is there any sense of pressure? Subtle or not so subtle.
Right.
And shop around. Like if you have a conversation, don't feel like, okay, I gotta, sometimes you'll know, like, yeah, this is the one, I'm just doing it. But there are lots of options out there.
Yes.
When you're working with a coach, when you're working with a therapist, a teacher as well, you really want to be able to go deeply. At least I would.
Yeah.
What's the point if I'm not going for it? Right. For me, and I think for a lot of people, to go there, to go to those places that we don't want to look at, right? To go to those places that maybe we've never seen. Safety, a sense of a safe container is essential.
Right.
And so, again, trust your felt sense.
Yes.
If you get off a call and go, ugh, or whoa, then that's good information.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, that's good. I feel like,
And don't be afraid to ask questions. If you're, often there's a process of getting to know someone, but if you feel some sense of, I don't know, intimidation,
right.
That's information too. It's really, it should be client centered. It should be about the client, the student, and not about the professional.
Right. What is the connection between consciousness and healing and wellness?
For me, it's the foundation. Consciousness is what underpins real, full wellness. I mean, we can do wellness practices.
Right.
Sure. And again, having that awareness, having, a path of opening to becoming a more conscious human being. And by that, building in the qualities of compassion, of big picture thinking, of love, right? Self-love, other love.
Yep.
Rooting oneself in these, some would say spiritual qualities, some would say human qualities. To me, that's what underpins wellness and actually facilitates it. I mean, heart math, just look at the research they're doing. What happens biochemically when we are focused on our hearts, or emitting a certain frequency from our heart center.
Right.
They're one of many doing research, but we all have this incredible scientific research station right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's our first piece of data.
Right.
And if we learn to tune into that, it can serve us really well.
I don't feel like it's a common thing to pay attention to consciousness. You know what I mean? Like if you're just going about day to day, right? It's just not we don't normally stop ourselves midday and, you know what I'm saying? Like it's,
well, unless you're my friends, but yeah.
Oh yeah, right. Okay. That's fair, right. I think it's an interesting thing to focus on, right? Especially to your point as like the foundation of wellness, it's akin to, your own awareness of self, right? Consciousness, so perhaps I do, but yeah, the word itself, it's such a beefy word and, and how we lean into it. Yeah.
You're totally right. And I mean, I was joking and I wasn't joking. I mean, these are the circles I run in for, for better or for worse, right?
Yeah.
Another question, like what's happening in my body right now?
Yeah.
To help move in that direction without getting hung up on consciousness.
Yes.
Right? Could be like, what am I doing right now? Like, what am I doing with my mind right now? Like, how am I using
my brain?
My mind? Am I spitting out vitriol, aggravation, annoyance? Am I sending love and compassion? Am I just breathing and staying neutral?
Yeah.
So that's a way without getting hung up in the lingo. And is it consciousness or is it awareness? And then, I mean, trust me, there are, even in people who study this, from the brain scientists to the yogis, right? What is consciousness? So there are differences of opinion. So yeah, maybe we just let that one go, right?
Right.
Again, come back to this thermometer or whatever it is. And what am I doing right now? And is this how I want energy? Is this how I want to be spending my life energy?
Ooh, that's a good one, Susan. That's a good one right there.
All right. I mean, it's not rocket science, but we have to slow down enough to be able to ask the question.
Yep. I would agree. Yep. Absolutely. What advice would you give to someone that perhaps is starting a business today?
Run. No.
Are you sure?
Here's what I would say.
Okay.
And this is part of doing your own work, right? So many entrepreneurs, myself included, they love their thing, right? They've spent all this time developing their skill, their product, their expertise, whatever.
Yeah.
And they run screaming from the room when it has to do with marketing and putting it out in the world. It's like, learning to embrace that. And one of the things that can really help with that is to think about marketing as service. Like it's not about you, it's about them. Like, what do they need?
Yeah. Yes.
And what do they need now?
Yeah.
And if you keep being responsive to that, I think that can help make the journey, and that part of the journey, which again, myself included, for so many entrepreneurs is tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that though. Yeah. Be in service to them.
It's service.
Yeah, right.
It's all about service.
Is there anything that you were hoping we were going to talk about that we did not discuss?
I can't think of anything. We covered a lot of territory.
I tried to, Susan. I do try.
Yeah, all right, great.
How can people find you? So share all the various places, because I'll link to all the different fun.
The best place really is my website. And it's my name, susandrouilhet.com.
Okay.
That's where my coaching work is. That's where my blog is for now. And there will soon, be a book page, etc.
Yes.
And then if you get on my email list, which you can do from that site, then you'll get announcements. I'm going to be starting a Substack with my writing. So that will be a good place to connect. But I would say that would be the best place.
Perfect. Okay. So everyone, go to the website. We'll link it for you and add your email so that you can get the notifications. And then Susan will be in your life. Thank you, Susan. Thanks for being on the Dean's List.
Thanks, Allison. This was super fun.
Oh, good. Okay. That's what I like people to say. I like everyone that's like super nervous and they're like, oh God, and then I like when the response is, oh yeah, that actually was kind of fun. Good. That's what we want. We want there to be joy, Susan, right? Joy. And thank you all for tuning into this episode of The Dean's List. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to stay updated and follow us on Instagram at official_Dean's List and YouTube at It's Official Dean's List. I'm your host, Allison Dean. Until next time.